Thanks for joining, people. Welcome, welcome. Let us, with this candle, call in a collective wish or vision or hope. All right. Hi. Thanks for joining. Where are y'all coming from? Would love to know today. Thanks for joining. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about rage. Good old rage, which is very present right now. Certainly in my life, certainly around me, certainly collectively, right? There's a lot to feel rageful about. All right, amazing. Looks like we have some folks from India and San Diego and San Francisco, DC, Jersey. That's awesome. Thanks for being here, good people. So who here is feeling a blanket of rage that is present in you, around you? There's a lot to be rageful for and about, right? Someone asked the question about how one might feel about the lack of media coverage on Black Lives Matter, especially now as time has passed. That's something to be rageful about. It's been real. It's been super real. And, rage and anger are really important feelings, right? They're part of being human. Yet they're also deeply uncomfortable and deeply painful, and also very, very tiring and exhausting, right? And so I've been feeling a lot of it lately, and it felt really important to speak about it today. Hey, Patrick. This is awesome. I love seeing all of you here. Thank you for joining. So today we're going to be reading from Women Who Run with the Wolves by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This has been the most revisited book in Woke Red Wednesday, along with The Body's Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor and The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And this one, we've explored, the river of creativity, El Rio Abajo Rio. We've explored the joyous flesh about body wisdom and body image. And today we're going to be turning to this gem of a text in relation to the boundaries of rage and how to process rage, how to hold it, because it feels very real. So let's just get into it, right? Per usual, for those of you who are familiar with the space, please consume this with me mindfully. And as I read a curated selection of bits of this chapter, please add in the comments words or concepts or things that you hear that resonate with you so that we may process this together and remember the teachings amidst all this other shit that's around us that we're taking in all the time. So at the end, I will go through comments, and of course, if there are any questions, please answer that. We've been doing some Q&A in these as well about the relevant topics, so happy to touch on that also. So again, also, if someone wants to add in the comments, Women Who Run with the Wolves, I'm happy to pin your comments so that folks who are coming in know what we're reading. So it's Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And if you do the favor of adding that in there, I can pin it. So we're reading from the chapter called Marking Territory, the Boundaries of Rage and Forgiveness. This is on page 381. If you have the text, this version of it anyway, you can follow along. This book was published by Random House in 1992. So it's It's had its time, and it continues to be just timeless and a relic. And one I've been going toward a lot in this time of quarantine, I have to say. It's been something that I've visited again and again. It's also not a book that I haven't finished, whatever that means. Like I turn to whatever chapter resonates for me. I've not read it front to back. I couldn't possibly. There's just so much to process in this book. And based on where I am in my life, different things can be resonating. Thank you for that comment. Appreciate you. So yeah, so any idea to try to finish this book would be not doing it justice, because different chapters have different topics that speak to life in different times. So, all right, let's start. Page 381. Even raw and messy emotions can be understood as a form of light, crackling and bursting with energy. We can use the light of rage in a positive way in order to see into places we cannot usually see. A negative use of rage concentrates destructively in one tiny spot until, like acid creating an ulcer, it burns a black hole right through all the delicate layers of the psyche. But there is another way. All emotion, even rage, carries knowledge, insight, what some call enlightenment. Our rage can, for a time, become teacher. A thing not to be rid of so fast, but rather something to climb the mountain for. Something to personify via various images in order to learn from, deal with internally, then shape into something useful in the world as a result. Or else, let it go back down to dust. In a cohesive life, rage is not a standalone item. It is a substance waiting for our transformative efforts. The cycle of rage is like any other cycle. It rises, falls, dies, and is released as new energy. Attention to the matter of rage begins the process of transformation. Allowing oneself to be taught by one's rage thereby transforms it, disperses it. One's energy returns to use in other areas, especially the area of creativity. Although some people claim they can create out of their chronic rage, the problem is that rage confines access to the collective unconscious. That infinite reservoir of imaginal images and thoughts, so that a person creating out of rage tends to create the same thing over and over again, with nothing new coming through. Untransformed rage can become a constant mantra about how oppressed, hurt, and tortured we are. So rather than trying to behave and not feel our rage, or rather than using it to burn down every living thing in a 100-mile radius, it is better to first ask rage to take a seat with us, have some tea, talk a while, so we can find out what summoned this visitor. We want to use anger as a creative force. We want to use it to change, develop, and protect. So whether a woman is dealing with the aggravation of the moment with an offspring or some sort of a searing, lengthy burn, the perspective of the healer is the same. When there is calm, there can be learning. There can be creative solutions. But where there is a firestorm, inside or out, it burns hot and leaves nothing but ash. We want to be able to look back on our actions with honor. We want something useful to show for feeling angry. So this is just a few paragraphs of what Clarissa Pinkola Estes says, but it is interspersed with a few stories about how to process rage, some myths that give some fictional symbology that offers some imagination to this concept of how to process rage. So I didn't even go into that. I really wanted to speak to her interpretations of rage, anger, and even some of those stories. So she mentioned climbing the mountain. One of the stories was about a woman who tries to heal her husband coming back from war, experiencing PTSD, the anger that comes with PTSD and the trauma that comes with it, by climbing a mountain to find the hair of a particular bear to bring back to a healer to help her heal her husband. And so she goes into some of the motifs of the story in relation to how it ties into processing rage. So I recommend reading more of this, getting this book, if you will, if you're drawn to her tone. She's very poetic in many ways, and this is only just, a super small sliver of it. But she talks about, this concept of inviting rage in for some tea. And this is such a beautiful philosophy, and it's prevalent in various different cultures around the world. Specifically, I think about Buddhism and the story of inviting Mara to tea. Mara is the demon, so to speak, of destruction and temptation and doubt. And the story goes that Mara would visit the Buddha frequently before he was enlightened and even after he was enlightened. She would be the temptress that was trying to lure him out of meditation into lust, into greed. She was the one who told the Buddha before he left his previous life as a prince in the palace that you're letting go of so many good things. What are you doing? You can't do that. That doubt, that uncertainty is Mara. And especially after his enlightenment, he would continue to invite her because she was still present. Mara was still present. Actually, I'm gendering it potentially wrong. I've heard Mara be described as a he and a she and an it, so disregard that gendering. But Mara is symbolic of the doubt and uncertainty that lives with all of us, even the enlightened beings, like the Buddha, according to myth. However, the way the Buddha responded to Mara that was different than some of his disciples was, while his disciples were freaking out that Mara's back, what are we going to do? Oh my God, that's wrong. The Buddha would say, it's all good. Let's have Mara come, have some tea, we'll have a chat, and then they can be on their way. And it's interesting to apply that framework to even some of the most uncomfortable, fiery, disturbing emotions like anger and rage. So personally, in my life, I am trying to refresh my relationship to anger. Historically, and I imagine with so many of y'all, and I'm so curious to know about your experiences in the comments if you would like to share, and your relationship to anger, is that anger is very uncomfortable for me. I go much more quickly to sadness or to feeling victimized before I go to anger. But I realize that as I get more also in touch with my masculine energy, I mean, so much of this book is about the sacred feminine, the primal, wild feminine, but part of all of us is also that masculine. And as I get more in touch with not only my primal feminine, but also my masculine, I want to make space for not only my anger and my expression of anger, but also that of the people around me. And so in the space of quarantine, in the space of the movement for Black lives, for a lot of injustices that are coming up to the surface, I do feel like anger has been very, very present righteously and necessarily. Kalima, I've drawn Kalima before, you might have seen her in the feed, but she's been very present during this time. And turning to someone like Kalima and learning more about her and what she symbolizes in Hindu mythology is such a profound way to get in touch with that primal nature of anger within me. So that's been really helpful. And I feel like if you're wanting some way to, get in touch with your anger in a way that is like inviting them it to tea, to have a discussion with it, to learn more about what its needs are, to learn about what the wisdom is beneath it, exploring characters, deities, people in your life who hold that anger in a way that is honoring and respectful of it, as well as people around, is a really beautiful way to do that. Kalima is one of those people. Some other ways that I found that help me process rage and anger are examples that I can root in some situations that I've had come up over even just the last 3 days. So this weekend, I was feeling a lot of anger. I didn't know where it was coming from, but it was really just activating me, really causing me to want to just scream. And so sometimes I have to honor that. And it's never at, ideally it's never at somebody or out at somebody. But I think you may have heard me, if you've been in here before, talking about screaming in a pillow, grabbing a pillow and just letting it out, breathing in, exhaling sound is a really powerful way to do that. And I would do that as a teenager just naturally because I had so many feelings, and bringing that practice back in therapeutically for my life as an adult has been really, really dope. Another way is moving my body. So putting on a song that may reflect a little bit of that righteous anger sometimes that could kind of spin me out into more, but moving my body in any which way that I want to, kind of just like out there, is a really, really important way that resonates with me. But recently, nature has been really important for me processing my anger. So this weekend, I had a couple days where I just didn't know why the fuck I was so pissed. And my partner and I went to the waterfalls, to Boulder Falls, which is relatively accessible here in Colorado for those of us in the area. And the waterfalls were just so profound in reflecting back the destructive energy that I was feeling, that like anger, that loud kind of feeling. And so seeing that outside of me and taking that in and taking the fresh air in and feeling the moisture in the air was exactly what I needed to feel reflected in my feelings and to feel connected to that. So, of course, waterfalls may not be easily accessible to all of us, which is okay. Another thing that really helped for me yesterday when I was feeling some really deep, confusing anger was I took a walk. And really, someone mentioned breath. Breath is really important. Took a walk. I also had eaten before that. And I was just feeling my stomach full and stagnant. When we are angry, our bodies are not digesting, right? When we are angry, we are in our sympathetic nervous system, in fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And that's the opposite system that promotes digestion and rest. So I was feeling the food just sitting there. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. So I walked to a tree in my neighborhood that I've been wanting to visit. I hadn't visited before. I saw it while driving, and I'm like, that's who I need to visit. So I walked there. It took me a while to get there. And then I just kind of spent some time with the tree. I sat at the base of the tree and just was feeling the anger. It was also feeling held, like with the roots beneath me, and sitting there at the base of this tree, offering this rage, this anger at the foot of this mother, this tree. And I just set that intention in my mind. I didn't know what to do with those feelings myself. And I just said, I just want you to have this. I don't want this. I laid this at your feet. And then I just started to cry. And I think I was able to access a deeper experience. And usually what is beneath anger is pain or sadness or fear. And that's really important to access, because that's where that transformation lies. That's where the creative potential lies. When we access something deeper that then taps us back into that collective unconscious that Clarissa Pinkola Estes was talking about. And I was able to release through my tears, letting it fall back into the soil as I continue to set the intention to give that rage back to the earth The earth is the supreme composter, and the earth can compost even the most uncomfortable, fiery emotions within us. Another thing that really relates to quelling anger is water. Of course, anger has a very fiery nature. Rage has a very fiery nature. And when we bring water to it, whether it be through our tears falling down our face, through drinking water, through submerging ourselves in a bath or in a pool, or even just under the shower head, that is a way to quell that fire that is within us even a little bit, to access something deeper beneath it that would help us transform. Transmutation station, yes, absolutely. Transmutation, alchemization, all about those stations. So there are ways that we can work with it. Naming that it is deeply uncomfortable. It is not comfortable. That's not what it is, and that's a fact. Yet we can still access it deeper within. We can still express it in contained ways that don't harm other people, by i.e. screaming in a pillow, or moving our bodies to a song, or composting it and giving it to the earth to take care of. So those are some ways that I feel like are really helpful. After I got back from my walk yesterday, I was feeling different. My stomach was feeling better. I feel like it was digesting a little bit. That was very indicative that I had moved from a more activated nervous state to somewhat of a more restful place. And then I was honoring my creativity, and I pretty much just created what I felt like in that moment of being by the tree and giving it to the tree. And so I was able to bring this out, bring my paints out. I wanted to get a little messy with paint. It felt right, and I honored that, and it was my way of processing that anger. And then when I had to be in conversation with someone else who was in relation to that anger, I was able to be there from a more holistic place, as opposed to from a more rageful or angry place. And that is really important when it comes to not only changing what's within us, but also in the dynamic and who is affected by us. So thank you for listening. I'd love to read some of the comments. Thank you for being here to have me share this with you. I appreciate that. I hope that it may help you or bring some reflection into your own life around how to release, transmute, sublimate, alchemize the energy of rage. I meditate, run, and take a cold shower. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. It's really good just to move that energy in our bodies. I was taught to suppress anger. Now I honor it and express it through journaling. Journaling is such a powerful way to do that. That's dope. Anger wasn't expressed in my home, and now that I'm expressing it with tact, I feel so empowered. Yes, it's such an important part of who we are, right? It's part of our fire. It's part of our solar plexus, our inner sun, and we need that. We need to be in touch with it. Otherwise, if we're not expressing our anger, our energy gets tight and stuck right here. And that's also so much tied to our sense of willpower and our sense of devotion and discipline. And we can access those parts of us, that ambition, that drive, that desire for change, when we are able to tactfully, I love that word that someone used, describe or express our anger. Narrative, anger is bad or not allowed. Yeah, right. It's such a common thing in our culture, and it is because it's scary. Not only is it scary because it could be so incredibly destructive, which is the same reason why I think so many people are scared of Kalima, because she represents primal, sexual, destructive, violent nature. But she's also so incredibly protective and motherly and powerful. I think skipping anger and over-analyzing anger without actually feeling the emotion has been a trauma response that I'm trying to unlearn. Wow, that's super insightful, and such a common tactic in our culture of intellectualization, right? Jumping to why am I feeling this way before just acknowledging that the feelings are there, right? I was reading something recently that talked about like, the Interplay Handbook. So Interplay is a movement-based modality founded in Oakland, and they have a handbook of different ethics of play. They encourage play as a means of liberation. Makes a lot of sense. Part of one of the ethics of play that they describe is allowing ourselves to experience our experience before trying to articulate our experience. So before trying to make sense of it, make meaning of it, explain it, we allow ourselves to just feel it, which is really hard for our brains to do, right? Because our brains want to understand everything, want to have an explanation. It needs to put things in boxes and have some categories associated with everything. But to allow ourselves to experience our feelings first is being okay with being in a space of uncertainty, of not knowing why the fuck we're feeling a certain way or where it's coming from. And that's the challenge for our brains. And if we can put our brains kind of to the side a little bit, let it try to get its meaning, to what have you, but then recentering on the feeling, the sensations in our bodies again and again, that's how we move into giving ourselves the experience before even making meaning of it. I had a dream about the Hindu god of destruction. Yeah, that's really powerful. That might be her invitation for you to spend some time with her. She definitely comes through in dreams. I hear a lot about that in dreams or when we're feeling a lot of feelings. She's very much an archetype within all of us, and archetypes are so often rooted in our subconscious minds, which is where our dreams get revealed. Our subconscious minds reveal our dreams, so that says a lot. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for tuning in, for participating. Water holds memory. That's dope. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just thinking about that book, The Body Keeps the Score, and how our bodies hold memory too, and how we are so much water in our bodies and how that's tied. Hearing how nature serves is in this process is having an impact on my understanding of how to channel my feelings. Yeah, nature is so supreme in helping us anchor, release, compost. I mean, really that experience last night was really profound for me, and a reminder and affirmation that it is really powerful. And that when I got out of my own way of sitting at my desk trying to figure out why the fuck I was feeling these feelings, and the message of just take a walk, go to that tree, just kept coming. And even though I didn't want to move, I wanted to be still in my anger. I was like, okay, let's go, let's just do it. And I walked, and it was uncomfortable, feeling really just stagnant. And then when I got to that tree, it felt like such a respite, and I felt really taken care of because I opened up to that. I like the grounding and giving it to the earth. Where did you learn that process or exercise? That's a good question. It is a very indigenous perspective. I can't tell you precisely where, but it's been reaffirmed in so many different spaces. Different spaces that reaffirm that perspective that I can shout out. One, Yes World is an organization that organizes retreat conference-like spaces for change makers. So you can check them out at yesworld.org. They share a lot of curanderismo, indigenous, body wisdom, interplay, type curriculum and knowledge. And so I remember really practicing that with them. My herbalist friends who really understand plant wisdom and the gifts of plants has been a really important teachers for me. And so check them out. I'd also recommend checking out the Moon Times Digest. A lot of these folks from these organizations, herbalists, healers, therapists, etc., are featured in the Moon Times. And so you can find the Moon Times at the bio link to learn more about those specific people and what they are teaching. How do you manage not letting your previous mistakes become negative thoughts about yourself, especially when others around us remind us of the past? It's really interesting because this chapter that I read from was called territory, like boundaries, territory, claiming territory, boundaries of rage and forgiveness. And forgiveness is also tied to rage in a really interesting way. Part of us we have to forgive ourselves for sometimes feeling so destructive and primally violent at times, right? In order to accept our rage, we have to forgive it and forgive ourselves for feeling those things. Sometimes we might call that constant reassessing, thinking about the past, rumination. So looking into rumination and how to deal with rumination might be helpful. So doing some more research on that. Sometimes the memories of those might be coming back to teach us something. There might be something that we missed that, it might be a visitor as well. So teaching or learning from that example of inviting the pain or the anger to tea might be inviting the pain or the feelings associated with past memories or negative thoughts to tea as well, and dialoguing with them in a different way. So that's somewhat of an abstract practice. Sometimes it helps having your journal to do that with, to dialogue between two parts in your journal, or to have a guide to do that as well. But researching rumination might be helpful. I struggled with boundless anger as a child, Aries moon things. Yeah, for sure. Children too, we all have a child within us still that wants to throw a tantrum. I feel like my inner child throws tantrums all the time, and she needs that. She needs that space to express herself. Yet, what's different now than when we were children is that we're grown and we've acquired, even just without even trying, just some wisdom, some awareness, some growth. We have something more than what we did as children. And if we experienced our anger or our feelings not being held in healthy ways as children, our inner child may still express themselves in that way, or may need desperately us to hold their feelings in a different way than they had as children. And so inner child work is really, really important here. We hear that a lot now. I think that's gotten pretty popular in terms of what it really means, and how specific practitioners or guides operate varies. A lot of it is really going back to understanding the feelings, understanding that those feelings, if they feel young, if you're feeling a certain way and you're I feel like a kid, if you have that sense, or you're I feel so young and dependent and irrational, I don't feel like myself fully, it's likely that your inner child is at the surface and is needing some care, and that she or they or him are taking over. And there's a way to sit with them in a way that, sitting with yourself, with the child that you really care about. What would that look like now that you're grown and know a little bit more maybe of what you need and what yourself as a child needed? For me, I really needed someone to validate my sadness and my anger, which is why I'm reassessing my relationship with anger. I really needed someone to tell me, it's okay that you're angry. I understand. You can be angry. What do you want to do? What do you need? Do you want to take a shower? Do you want some tea? Do you want to go climb a tree? Whatever, right? But first, allowing that and being it's okay that you feel that way. And talking to myself like a child in a tantrum. I feel you. You totally have a reason to be angry. We don't know why yet, but that's okay. You can be angry. And it's that giving that to myself now. Thinking about collecting our tears and pouring them into the earth. I love it. It's so poetic and so true. And yeah, it's beautiful. For compost, definitely. Yes. Will you say the name of the handbook about play? Yes. So interplay.org is where you can find the program. It's based in Oakland. However, they have teachers all over the world, and you can attend Interplay classes online right now. They have a bunch of Zoom classes, and it's really a modality that has a mission to unlock body wisdom through storytelling, movement, and play. And so check them out. You can learn a lot from them. And it's actually, it may be worth, I think it's donation based. You can attend classes via Zoom, and it's really interesting. It's just an opportunity to move together with people and be in your body. Yes, interplay.org. Okay, cool. Thanks for tuning in. Let me see if there's any other stuff. Loving all the comments. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Wow, I'm at the space with my daughter who is such a reflection of me and her age, and it's so challenging how I was not validated as a child. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I that's such a portal, I imagine. You know, it's one thing doing inner child work as solitary, or not solitary, but as people who don't have actual children, which is where I'm at. I'm in that phase of my life, and it's interesting to just be with me and my inner child. But I have such awe and like heart eye emojis for people who are doing inner child work with actual external children. And yeah, how they bring out stuff within us that's deeply unresolved, and we have to find a way to both resolve it and be tending to our inner and outer children. Yeah, so for sure, it's a lot that you're navigating. So I admire and respect the mothers and parents out there doing the work of self-parenting while also parenting external humans. So shout out to y'all. Thanks. I have 4 with myself, 5. Wow, that's amazing. And to still make time for self-development, self-work, self-reflection is like goals, honestly. Goals. I hope that I may have that time when I have humans too, inshallah. All right, y'all, thank you so much for being here and participating. It was really beautiful to read your comments. The call to action this week is to notice how rage and anger shows up in your life, and to bring some water to it, to spend time with nature, and let Mother, the Supreme Mother, that is our home here, compost that energy, and lay it at the feet of her, because we may not always know what to do with it, and it may feel so deeply burning and overwhelming, but there is possibility to transform it, and that it's here to teach us. All right, y'all, stay woke and stay red in this time. And deep love to you. Have a liberating week. Ciao.